I live in a small, peaceful town, a place where you don't have to worry about walking alone at night. My home is a modest one-story house that I share with my sister, though she's hardly ever home. She spends most of her time at her other place in Florida. The houses in my neighborhood are spaced apart, about 100 to 200 feet between each. Across the street, there's a stretch of woods, quiet, undisturbed. I follow the same routine every evening. I come home from work, make dinner, shower, relax for a bit, then go for a run. After my run, I have a light snack and head to bed. It's the same schedule every night. One night, like any other, I went for my usual run. The air was cool, the streets silent. But when I returned home, something caught my eye. A white van parked across the street. It was unusual. Hardly ever did random cars park in our neighborhood. We don't get much through traffic here. As I walked backward toward my front door, I glanced at the van again. Someone was sitting inside. I couldn't make out any details. The glass was too dark, or maybe it was just the night obscuring my view. Later that night, as I was winding down, I heard a noise outside, a strange, scraping sound. I walked to my window, peered outside, and called out, "Hello?" The noise stopped. I stared into the darkness for a moment, then shrugged it off. Maybe it was my neighbor doing something in his yard. I went back to what I was doing and forgot about it. The next day was Friday, my last workday of the week. I stuck to my routine, but went on my run a little earlier than usual since I had plans with friends. As I jogged back home, I half expected to see the van again. But this time, it wasn't there. That night, after hanging out at a comedy club with my friends, I got home late. Exhausted, I locked the door and quickly got ready for bed. But as soon as I turned off my bedside lamp, I noticed something. Thumping, rustling. The sounds were coming from inside the walls. I sat up, heart pounding. I pressed my ear against the wall and listened. The noises were faint, but definitely there. I knocked lightly, and just like the night before, the sounds stopped. I convinced myself it was just an animal, maybe a raccoon. I got up to grab a drink from the kitchen, and as I passed by the window, I saw it again. The van, parked in the same spot. Only this time, no one was inside. Something wasn't right. I stepped outside, barefoot, and walked to the side of my house. My eyes scanned the foundation, searching for any gaps or holes where an animal might have crawled through. That's when I noticed it, the crawl space door. It was slightly open. The lock had been snapped off. I hadn't checked that door in weeks. Hesitantly, I pulled it open a little more, leaning inside. The darkness swallowed my vision. I squinted, trying to adjust my eyes. Then I heard it. A soft scraping, pebbles shifting against concrete. At first I thought, an animal. But the sounds changed. They became rhythmic. Footsteps, human footsteps. A shadow moved. Someone crouch walking toward me in the darkness. I slammed the crawl space door shut and twisted the knob. No lock, no way to secure it. Heart racing, I sprinted inside and locked my front door. I grabbed my phone and called the police. As I peeked out the window, the van was gone. The officers arrived quickly. I led them to the crawl space, and with flashlights in hand, we stepped inside. The beams of light cut through the darkness, revealing something chilling. In the left corner of the crawl space, deep-cut marks lined the wooden beams. The intruder had been trying to saw their way into my house. The only clue I had to give them was the white van. But without cameras or a description of the person, there wasn't much to go on. They never came back. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had caught on to something that was never meant to be noticed. My family has a summer home in the Arapahoe National Forest in Colorado. It's about a 7-hour drive from my usual place. I don't go there often, mostly for hunting or to detox. One summer, in 2017, I drove up there alone. The house was just as I left it, small, rustic, but perfect for a retreat. I unlocked the door using the keypad, turned on the power and water, and started settling in. Everything felt normal until I heard it. Laughter, children's laughter. I walked to the window that overlooked the woods, but when I looked out, I saw nothing. Curious, I stepped outside, following the sounds into the trees. But the more I walked, the further the laughter seemed, always just out of reach. Eventually, I gave up and went back inside. The next day, I was out hunting when I heard the laughter again. This time, I was ready. I fired a round into the air, hoping to scare off the trespassers. Silence. That night, with the windows open for fresh air, the laughter returned. This time, it was louder. I grabbed my Winchester and flashlight, stepping outside. The laughter seemed closer than ever. I yelled into the darkness, "Get off my land!" Then, the laughter exploded in volume. Something landed next to me, an old battered speaker. It was blasting the sound of children laughing. Then at the edge of my flashlight's glow, a figure. It stood still, watching. I fired into the air and ran back inside, slamming the door shut. I closed every curtain, locked every door. I considered calling the sheriff, but by the time they'd arrive, it would be too late. Then I heard it. A wet smudge against the window, written in what looked like blood. I didn't read it. I grabbed my bag, my gun, and ran to my truck. I left that night and never looked back. I was 14 when I stayed home alone for the first time. That night as I walked home, I noticed a car following me. I sped up. The car flashed its lights. Panic set in. I sprinted to my house, locking the door behind me. Moments later, banging. Someone was at my front door. Then the knocking moved to my window. A voice yelled through the glass. "There's someone inside your house." I froze. Then I heard it. Footsteps inside the house. The doorknob to my parents' bedroom twisted. Then, banging. I hid in the closet, phone to my ear, whispering to 911. By the time the police arrived, the intruder had escaped. The man outside, the one who was banging on my window, was telling the truth. Someone had followed me home, and they were already inside. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was taken. Whoever it was didn't come for valuables. They came for me. And that night, I learned, sometimes, the things that haunt us aren't ghosts or demons. They're the things we never see coming.